Aloha, my lovelies. Welcome to my new book review channel where I will be reviewing the books that I read. So, today, our first book that we will be reviewing is called Hamnet, and it is by Maggie O'Farrell. And it's, as the title would suggest, it is a novel of the play. And so, basically, it's a fiction novel about William Shakespeare and his family, mostly about his son Hamnet. And so it kind of Maggie O'Farrell takes the information that she can find, the little information that we do know about Shakespeare and his family, and then tries to fill in the blanks for us. So kind of automatically we know it's not necessarily all going to be true. If almost a majority of it's not going to be true because it is labeled as fiction, but there are some things that are. So, for example, how many children he had, his parents, his wife, his sister, brothers, etc. There are some things that the author takes liberty with that she acknowledges at the end, where she says, like, she changed, I think she said she changed Shakespeare's sister's name just because it was a double name with the wife's stepmother, and so it would have been confusing, and so she changed the name for that. So those kinds of small things. So this novel actually was one of the New York Times notable books of 2020, and it was also best book of 2020 in The Guardian, Financial Times, Liberty Hub, and on NPR, which is actually where my friend and I found this novel. It was introduced to me through her, and we were really lucky to find it. Actually, we were really excited about it once we saw it. So then the author Maggie O'Farrell, she's a Northern Irish slash British novelist, which is taken verbatim from Wikipedia. And she has several awards aside from these, but she's won a Women's Prize for Fiction because of Hamnet. She's also won something called the Walter Scott Prize for Historical Fiction. So stuff like that. So she's won several awards for this novel and some of her other more notable novels, which are I Am, This Must Be the Place, and After You'd Gone. I haven't read any of those. I hadn't heard about them until I was looking her up, but they do seem like interesting books. And she, based on this particular novel, I do trust that she probably writes some really good stuff. So, for a summary, what I wanted to do actually was read you the, the book cover, just because I think it's a better summary than anything I'd ever be able to give you guys. Okay. So, England, 1580. The Black Death creeps across the land, an ever present threat, infecting the healthy, the sick, the old, and the young alike. The end of days is near, but life always goes on. A young Latin tutor, penniless and bullied by a violent father, falls in love with an extraordinary, eccentric young woman. Agnes is a wild creature who walks her family land with a falcon on her glove and is known throughout this countryside for her unusual gifts as a healer, understanding plants and potions better than she does people. When she settles with her husband on Henley Street in Stratford upon Avon, she becomes a fiercely protective mother and a steadfast centrifugal force in the life of her young husband, whose career on the London stage is just kicking off when his beloved young son succumbs to sudden fever. A luminous portrait of a marriage, a shattering evocation of a family ravaged by grief and loss, and a tender and unforgettable reimagining of a boy whose life has been all but forgotten, and whose name was given to one of the most celebrated plays of all time. Hamnet is memorizing, seductive, impossible to put down, a magnificent leap toward, a magnificent leap forward from one of our most gifted novelists. So yes, basically, it is about Shakespeare, but at the same time, he's not the point. The point is Hamnet and Shakespeare's family and the trials they go through during the play, the things they lose, the things they gain, the emotions that they have to deal with. When I first started reading this, I kind of struggled with it because I didn't really understand what was happening, only because this book is written in third person omniscient present tense. And that's kind of weird. And it's strange only because I typically, when I read novels, they're in third person or first person close, which basically means we're in the protagonist's head the entire time. We don't know the thoughts of any of the other characters unless the author decides to switch between the character point of views, like from chapter to chapter. Whereas in this one, omniscience means that the author or the narrator is God, and so is able to tell the audience or the readers what's happening in everybody's heads kind of at the same time, not having to necessarily change from character to character. But I think what really tripped me up was the third person present tense. I just hadn't seen it a lot. So it was weird for me at first, but it really really works, and it's beautifully written, and it creates this other level of storytelling that you don't get with the past tense, right? Because past tense is very, oh, once upon a time, such and such lived in such and such place, and they did this and they did that. So it's very storytelling. It's very like, let me recount the lives of these people. Whereas this third person present was very much more of a, I am in the story at the time. I am witnessing what is happening versus it being told to me. That was such a revolution for me. It was such a beautiful way of writing that I had never considered before, because typically I don't like writing in present tense. I find it difficult to do so. But Maggie O'Farrell just does it so well, and it's just so perfect. One of the things I really appreciated was like her descriptions of things, her descriptions of the people and of the town around the people, the weather, passing of time, right? This book takes place, I guess, technically over a year. So it has this really interesting dual timeline thing going on, whereas like one timeline is from the present or our present in the novel, and then it starts with Hamnet. And then the other timeline is from 15 to 20 years before, I think. And it's Shakespeare meeting Agnes, which I think is really cool, really sweet. And it was just a really interesting look into how he became who he became. Whether it's true or not, it was just an interesting sort of thing. The other descriptions that I really appreciated and actually made it a little bit hard to read the story at times was O'Farrell's description of the really intense depression that comes with the loss of a loved one. She, in my opinion, really nails it on the head, especially from the point of view of a mother losing a child, which it was really painful. And it was just written so well, I guess, you know? Yeah, so just be aware of that when you're going into it, I guess. Something else that she did that was really interesting to me was the fact that throughout the entire novel, Farrell never mentions William's name. Well, he's talked about all the time, but his name is never said. When Agnes talks about him, she doesn't call him William or she doesn't call him Will. She calls him my husband. His parents call him, oh, my son, my son, my son, father for the babies. And so it was really interesting that she never brings it up because it creates this sort of humanistic feel for him that I think is something you lose when you discuss celebrities, because when you bring up a celebrity's name, right, you kind of it kind of comes with all of the reputation or the infamy, all of the mistakes they've made, all of the successes they've had. Whereas when you don't bring it up and you simply talk about them from the point of view of he is a man who had a family that experienced something horrific, and this is the story of that challenge. It kind of creates a completely different feel of the novel because, again, it's not about Shakespeare. It's about Hamnet, and it's about Agnes, and it's about Judith, who is Hamnet's twin. It's about Susanna, who is their older sister. It's about the mother and father, and it's about Shakespeare's siblings. It's about the servants. It's about the town. It's about the plague. It's not a Shakespeare story. And I think that's something that's really important for this to have worked. And I think O'Farrell does it just really, really beautifully. With all of that said, I do kind of have trouble figuring out who I would recommend this to. Part of me would immediately want to recommend it to people who love Shakespeare. But I do think that there would be a little bit of that expectation of some Shakespearean language, which it doesn't have. And I think that because at least the majority of the Shakespeare lovers I know tend to be sticklers a little bit, not in a bad way, but there's that kind of elitism because Shakespeare is who he is. And so I'm almost afraid to recommend it to them because I feel like because it's not about him and therefore is not written in a Shakespearean way or any of that, it can almost be a little misleading for them. And so I guess what I would say is I would recommend this to anybody looking for a really good novel that's really well written. Just to put that concisely, I think I'd recommend it to anybody looking for a really well written historical fiction. That's kind of all I have to say about that. It is available on Amazon. It's also available in Barnes and Nobles. I'm sure there are other places it's available from, but I did get mine from Barnes and Nobles. The story I'm reading next is called Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. It's a young adult novel. I'm about halfway through it, and I definitely have some thoughts on it already, but you can catch those thoughts in the next video. Please make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so that you get notifications for when the next video drops. If you would like, you could also follow me on Twitch, which the link is in the description box for you guys. I'm a variety streamer there. I play lots of different games. My Discord is also linked down below for you guys. It's another place where I'm hoping to build a community of not only gamers, but readers and writers. And so I will have Hamnet linked on there as a recommendation for people to read, as well as, of course, this video. Yeah, I hope to see you guys there. Again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you all next time. I am outies. Bye bye.